Welcome back. We're wrapping up our discussion on the newly released Emergencies Act Commission report. And joining me again is Barry W. Bussey. Barry, in the report, and I know we've gone through a lot of what I would say are negatives that we didn't like that this happened at the commission, or the heavily redacted, basically unavailable legal document, which would have been the missing puzzle piece. But Justice Rouleau did make some criticisms, or at least recommendations, 56 of them to the government. What were some of these recommendations? Do they carry any weight, or are they just window dressing?
Yeah, well, I think they will carry weight in the political world. Here's the thing. These recommendations are, basically his view going through this process. This was the first time ever, and hopefully it's never used again, but the first time ever that the Emergencies Act was used. And so he's the first commissioner, and he is now setting the tone for the future. What he's basically saying is, and if you look in particular from recommendations 37 to 49, you'll see that he's making strong recommendations to the government to ensure that in the future commissions, that government is going to be more cooperative, that they're going to have the right to be able to basically subpoena documents. They'll be able to get parliamentarians to not rely on their privilege, but be able to actually speak and give full testimony. Those kinds of things, I think, going forward are very positive. That is extremely important.
And you think the government will adopt those? I mean, again, I hope we never have another commission. But
yeah, it's questionable, right? Because what happens is that the government is going to be vulnerable if those recommendations are followed, because now suddenly you're going to have more than just simply the cabinet documents, so-called, being transparent, but no, they're actually going to have to stop redacting those documents, and so it'll be very interesting to see if the government would do that.
Was there anything else that stood out for you in the report that you want to discuss? Like, I know the Canadian Civil Liberties Association said that they're going to be proceeding with a judicial review of the government's decision to invoke the act, and right now I believe it's before federal court. Is there anything else?
Yeah, well, I think that's a very important point, because this was not a court, so his decision has no legal binding. However, what is interesting is that he is an eminent judge from the Ontario Court of Appeal, and just the fact that he has now expressed his view, I think may have some influence in the other courts, but it's not binding.
Right.
But I think what this does, though, it does allow the government to be able to say, "See, we're okay, we're good." But
Let's
I think
pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, but I think what's really important is for the average Canadian to recognize that, look, we are the ones who put people in office. And if we're of the view that what the Prime Minister, what the various politicians did was wrong, it's up to us to take our responsibility when we go to that ballot box and make sure that we are voting for individuals whom we can trust.
Well,
and I think so many people are cynical and they don't want to get involved in the process, but they have to.
Well, this is a good segue into my last question. And really, I think the most important and overarching question here is, what does our democracy look like going forward in light of the use of the Emergencies Act, in light of this commission report? What does our democracy look like?
Well, I tell you, if his recommendation about modernizing the Emergencies Act comes to fruition, and that is one I think the government may very well impose, and that is basically, in essence, lowering the standard, even though Rouleau in his report says, well, we can't lower the standard, we got to keep it high. Well, if you're going to now allow what happened in Ottawa last year as being the new bar, then that is lowering the standard. Because what we saw was a government imposing emergency actions on a group of peaceful protesters for the only reason that they did not agree with the Prime Minister. That, I think, is a problem going forward, and it is something that we, as the average Canadian citizen, must speak up and must ensure that we are part of the political process to ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
Barry, those are some excellent words, strong words. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate your insights, and we'll have to keep following this.
Okay. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. I'll say it again, and I think it's important we do repeat this, is what does Canadian democracy look like going forward in light of this commission? For Counterpoint, I'm Tanya Granick-Allen.